Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
He said he gon' huff and puff and blow my mind up. You meet the island girl, she might dirty wind up.
Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show. I'd like to thank J23 for our intro music. You can find a link to her music in the show description. My guest today is Glenda Lane. Glenda guides individuals to live authentically from their hearts, using her gifts in intuitive energy, emotional alchemy, and divine connection. With 13 years as an intuitive energy coach and over 30 years as a holistic physical therapist, she integrates emotional, energetic, and physical realms to help clients reclaim peace, freedom, and love. Glenda's work helps people experience deep shifts in health, relationships, and personal fulfillment, all while embodying love and soul-led living. Glenda, welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
Oh, thanks so much, Deepak. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, pleasure having you. We've known each other for a couple of years now, and I would consider you a friend of mine, and we've certainly done some business relationships. So happy to finally get you on the podcast here. So I like to start off with maybe just go back and maybe how you got into becoming an RMT, and then how that morphed into kind of the work you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, gosh, physical therapy was something I actually knew in high school that I wanted to do, like when I was 15, if you can believe it. It was something, I think, because I was so involved in sports. I was, an athlete and got injured. And so really, saw firsthand what physical therapy was about. And I just love sports in general. And then I just thought the human body was fascinating. Like, it's a fascinating machine, how it all works together. And so I knew at that time, this is the weird part, I knew at the time that I had a lot of my teachers sort of trying to nudge me going into med school to become a doctor. And what I was thinking at the time, even back then, was, you know what? I know that if I go into med school, that I'm going to really want to specialize in something, and I'm pretty passionate about things. So I knew that would kind of take over a lot of my life, and I also knew that I wanted to have a family, and that you can work part-time as a physical therapist pretty easily. So I was even considering it back then. It boggles my mind that I was even
pretty aware as a
that way.
15-year-old.
Yeah, I'm really like shocked when I think back of like, wow, I was actually thinking that way. So yeah, I went into, back then, aging myself here, but the physical therapy program is now a master's program here in Canada. And back then it was a Bachelor of Science. So I went in right from high school. I went to McGill University and did my physical therapy degree there. So I was 21 when I was starting to work as a physical therapist. So yeah, it's been something that has taken me, gosh, it's gone from being very sports focused and working with, our Canadian athletes overseas at Universiade games and such, to going more into some traditional Chinese medical acupuncture. So bringing some Eastern medicine into my work, and then also, it's called visceral manipulation. It's a terrible word. I do not manipulate people's internal organs, but it's a very holistic approach to treating the fascia, and that incorporates the internal organs of the body and all of that. So yeah, so it's been a fascinating journey. I see patients from all, whether it's sports, whether it's doing more visceral manipulation, more energy type work, but it's just, I'm just a full believer in treating people as whole beings. And I know now, just gosh, from the work that I've done as an intuitive energy coach now for years, is that the physical symptoms that people come to me with, it's never just a physical issue. There's always something underneath it, whether it's emotional, a lot of stress. So I see a lot of a lot of people are stressed, and that's having an effect on the physical body. So there's fears, there's emotions, there's beliefs, all kind of at the root of it. So for me now, I can't just treat the physical part. It just doesn't, it goes against what I know to be true. So I'm really enjoying working in this way now. And so I do that 2 days a week, and then I do my intuitive energy coaching the rest of the time. So.
Awesome. So I want to close this loop. Maybe it's only in my own mind, but it might be for some of the listeners as well. Backtrack a couple minutes here in our conversation. What sports did you play when you were younger? You said you're like big into sports. So which sports?
Yeah, so well, this isn't really a sport, but I did ballet for 12 years. So from gosh, the age of 2 to 14. So that was quite a span. And then I played soccer. Started off on a boys' team because we didn't have a girls' team initially. So played soccer, uh, running, cross country running, track and field. The 400 was kind of my race. And then my main one was cross country skiing. So I competed in that at a sort of junior national level. So that was kind of took up a lot of
Oh, cool.
my
I did not know that
my
about you.
time.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, and can't forget cycling. My dad's an avid cyclist, has been his entire life. So we grew up cycling and going on cycling holidays. So that's another sport that I'm a big fan of.
And
Follow it
your
all.
husband's
So
really into cycling too, right?
yeah, absolutely. And he does, he does these crazy 24-hour solo mountain bike races, and that I'm like, yeah, no, I'm more of a roadie. Road cycling was my thing, but yeah, he's very much into that. So we're big, Tour de France fans. We watch all the classics. We watch all the, yeah, crazy bike nerds, the two of us. So
Got it. Got it.
yeah.
So we might get into this later, but just going back to the visceral manipulation,
Hmm.
and that tying of like the emotions or unresolved emotional issues to
Yeah.
physical symptoms. Do you find that doing, again, no, you said a poor term that you don't like, but doing the visceral manipulation with, say, a certain organ um, ties to an emotional release as well? I would assume so from my own research, but let's hear it right from you.
Yeah, well, and so in the visceral manipulation world, they definitely have certain emotions tied to the different organs, which is very consistent also with acupuncture. So in the body, as an example, the kidneys, the emotion is fear, and the lungs, the emotion is sadness, and the liver, the emotion is anger, and the gallbladder, sort of anger, frustration. So there's these correlations, and definitely when I do it. And what's really funny is, you would think manipulation is sort of a really vigorous type of thing. It's so subtle and gentle, what I'm doing, because I'm really feeling for where the organ wants to move. And in essence, we're releasing fascia. So it's an energetic thing. There's a fascial release that happens, the connective tissue in the body that connects everything, as well as an energetic component to it. So absolutely, there is, because we're releasing fascia, and a lot of our emotions are stored in the fascia of the body.
Right.
Um, so we're releasing that, and then also the energetic component. So there definitely are emotional releases that happen, and often people will. What I've noticed is people are really tired. They're really tired after, even though they're not doing anything. They're lying on on the table, and I'm just, doing some very gentle work on them. They notice afterwards, and that's because of the energy that we've released, the energy that's moving. There's definitely something going on in the energetic level. So
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this is not the exact same thing, but I'll just share this is we have a massage therapist that we work with. We have for years, and she comes to our house, and which is fantastic. And if we didn't have like such a good relationship that we can just like talk about whatever, like we just end up talking the whole session because we very like-minded individuals. But before we met her, I'd get on the table and I'd be like out. I'm just like exhausted, and of course it's very relaxed and everything, like that. So I totally get that people are tired just in general. And I just also want to circle back. Just I want to really underline for what Glenda said for the audience is. Glenda didn't use these words, but it's massage. It's gentle touch, right? It's the visceral manipulation. She's not tweaking and twerking and punching your kidneys and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very light, right? So don't be scared by it. You're right. It's a terrible term. It needs to be a
yes.
better term for that.
Yeah.
Glenda, I've heard you talk about decon deconditioning someone's true self and the importance of that. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So when we come, I'll just give you a little story. When we come into this human body as a baby, we come in as pure essence. So what I mean is like the purity of who you are, the truth of who you are, and it usually stays with us typically for about the first 3 years of our lives. I mean, you just have to look at a 2-year-old toddler. They're just doing their thing. They're not. Uh, they they're living their best life, right? Like, and then something happens somewhere between the age of 4 and 7. We have an experience where we have fear. We feel fear or we feel hurt, and we develop an ego. And our ego is all about trying to keep us safe. That's its main job. And so this experience that we have, we go, oh, wait a second, the world's kind of a scary place and people can be mean. I need to protect myself. And that's where the ego comes in. And so we start also in that experience, we take on a belief about ourselves, and often, very common ones. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving, unlovable, all the ones, right? And as a result of that belief, we then decide we need to be a certain way in the world, right? So it's like, well, if I'm not enough, I'll give you my example. If I'm not enough, then I have to prove my worth somehow. So I was very much, I call myself a recovering serial achiever. It was all about achieving for me, straight A student and going, hard in sports, like getting that top. It was like, that was how I was going to prove that I was worthy. And if I, kept really doing well, people would still want me around and I would be loved, right? And this was my own, it wasn't from my parents. They were always very supportive of me and proud of me, but they never put pressure on me to excel. That was me. That was all self-driven. And so that's an example. Another one could be you engage in people pleasing. It's like, well, if I just make everyone else happy, then I'll be loved and I'll be safe. And so we all have our different flavors of, I call these protective patterns that we take on. And the conditioning that we have and that we keep taking on through life, and most of it started in our childhood, but it keeps going, is we take on these beliefs about ourselves, and then we take on these ways of being, which are these, protective patterns, which become really well-practiced habits, to the point that we identify with them. So, we'll even say, I am a people pleaser. I am a perfectionist. And I was like, no, that's not who you are. That's just your behavior. And so it's really understanding that, we all do this. This is the human journey. And when we start to believe these mistruths about ourselves and start acting in ways that aren't really aligned with who we are, we start forgetting that essence, that purity of who we are when we came into existence, and the divinity that we are, our spirit, our soul, and we start to forget and kind of move away from it a little bit. And so we start to live these conditioned lives. And in addition to our own experiences, there's society that tells us what a good person is, who
Right.
you should be, right? There's conditioning taken on through your family, your parents, and that can be ancestral, right? So there's all sorts of stuff that take us away from being who we really are at our core. And so we're living a misaligned life that isn't true to who we are. And for me, being a physio and being very, pushing myself to excel all the time was really taking me away from the love that I am. So in other words, I was so up in my head, like walking around, I was like a head walking around on a stick, always thinking, trying to figure stuff out. And I really lost touch with my body, being connected to my body and being connected to my heart. Had a lot of walls up around my heart, couldn't feel things to the degree that I do now. And it was really my mom passing away, I guess about 21 years ago now, that really, people say they're brokenhearted when they lose a loved one. And I say that my heart was broken open. It was the catalyst for me to break open my heart to a point that I could then now feel the way that I do. And now it's one of my superpowers. I just recognized how intuitive I am. So the deconditioning is really starting to see, and so deep self-awareness, right? So what am I believing about myself and how am I behaving in the world? Like what am I doing that really isn't true to myself? Because that is surviving our lives. And when we're in alignment with our true selves, that's where flow lives. That's when we flourish. That's when we thrive. And it's really walking our own path on our own soul's journey in this lifetime instead of like being one of the crowd, so to speak, and doing what
Right,
everyone
right.
else is doing. Yeah. So it really is, honestly, it's the deconditioning process is really moving from disconnection to deeper alignment. That's kind of in a nutshell, how I'd
Got it.
summarize it.
I want to come back to this body heart connection that you mentioned just a few moments ago. But before you do, I want to ask you this because you also talked about some of these beliefs that people have. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a people pleaser, etc. Before we hit the record button, I was telling you about this 3-day event that I just attended at just a few days before the time of our recording here. And this came up at that event, so I'd love to get your take on it. That no one is actually a people pleaser; they're a conflict avoider. That's actually how people is the true issue. They're a conflict avoider, and that's why they say yes. That's why they want to please people, because they don't want to have the hard conversation. They don't want to say no because that's going to cause, or at least they're going to tell them they're telling themselves a story that it's going to cause conflict. So I'd love to get your take on that really quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I think people pleasing is actually to me, it's like a big umbrella term because I think there's lots of different aspects of it. There's people pleasing in just trying to make others happy, because one of the things is that if people in our lives are happy, then we can relax. It's kind of like this, if they're happy, then I'm happy, but if they're not happy, then I can't be happy. So there's almost this like, I need them to be happy in order for me to be happy, which isn't the truth, but it's kind of one of the things that we believe. I do agree with the avoiding conflict, these people who like to smooth things over, keep the peace, right? All the things, and avoid those difficult conversations. Why? Because there's fear. And there's fear fueling whether we're doing it to make others happy, whether we're doing it to avoid conflict. There's fear at the root of all of that. And then the last one is about saving people, almost taking it like, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to take responsibility for other people's health and well-being. And that's just not the truth. We're not, we're responsible for ourselves. We can care about and we can support and all of that, but it's not our jobs to do that. So people pleasing is a very big, like I said, it's like an umbrella, and I think there's different flavors of it, let's say. But absolutely avoiding conflict is one, because they're tough conversations. People don't like tough conversations. I get it. I don't like them, but I know how important they are. Nobody likes how they feel, and that's what they're trying to avoid. All of these behaviors are trying to avoid us feeling a particular way, whether it's hurt from the past, whether it's, the fear that can come up about, like, if I say this, if I have this tough conversation, is this person going to leave me? Is there going to be a lot of anger? Like, right, it's that whole unknown. And so, yeah, I do agree. It is avoiding conflict. But I think there's other aspects of it too.
Sure. No, thank you for your perspective. I think that's also just a nice segue just to bring us back to where I wanted to go to, again, the importance of being connected to your having your body and heart connected to, like, live the life you're meant to live. So I know that's something you talk about. You can maybe expand on that a little bit more too.
Yeah. So one of the things, I would say probably the vast majority of the population is living up in their heads. And why I say that is because that's what we're taught to do. We're taught to be logical thinkers. And we're actually taught to make decisions using our logical minds. The problem with that is it limits us. And I don't actually, I remember reading, Richard Rudd said this. He's the writer of the author of the Gene Keys. And I remember when I read this, I was like, wow, that makes total sense to me. He's like, the mind is actually not supposed to be your decision maker. And yet we're taught that that's what we make decisions with. Really, what we're supposed to tune into is our body wisdom and our intuition, and what is our heart telling us. So, the thing about being, living from your head, that's also where fear tends to take hold. It's also where your ego is. And so it's like that leads you, and it can be very confining. It's almost like having blinders on, and it limits possibilities. It's like you're not open. If you're just using logic, you're then not open to other potentials and possibilities that are available to you. And so for me, coming into my body and connecting with my body and learning how to do that, like dropping out of my thinking mind into my feeling body, was what really activated my intuition, and how I actually realized just how intuitive I am. And we all are, by the way. I don't believe there isn't one person on this planet that isn't intuitive, doesn't have intuition. Again, we're not taught to listen to it. We're not taught to practice it, which is what we need. If you want to really have your intuition on board, it requires practice, just like anything else, any other skill. And so, because the mind tends to, and the ego mind is really about keeping you safe and is really fear-based, if we're making decisions with that mind all the time, then we're often making decisions from fear instead of what's really true and aligned for us, and really operating from a place of, well, what's in the highest here, and what would love do? Those are two of the questions that I ask all the time when I'm making a decision. Right. And then tuning into my body, how does it respond? If I think of making decision A, what does that feel like in my body? Does it feel constrictive and tight, contractive? Or does it feel expansive and light? And your body will never lie to you, but your head will. So that's why it's such a great feedback barometer. I also believe our bodies are the messengers of our soul. So our soul speaks to us through the body. So if we're not in connection with that, how do we hear what our soul is saying to us? And the way that our souls speak to us through the body is through emotion. It's through physical sensation, through dysfunction and disease. And those are all ways that are telling us, hey, something's off here. Like something's not true. And most of the time, we're believing a mistruth. In other words, we're believing a lie that at a subconscious level that we're not even aware of. So really being in tune with your body, I use it, it's like my best friend. It's telling me when I'm when I'm in my conditioning, let's say, or when I'm making a decision that isn't really aligned for me. I'm so in tune with it now that it actually doesn't let me go too far that way anymore, because it's really loud. Like what I mean by that is, yeah, it's really uncomfortable. Like I just get so uncomfortable in my body, whether it's pain, whether it's tension, or whether I'm just feeling like really off, and so that's my signal to go, okay, wait a second, let me just take a breath here. Let me take a step back. Let me really tune into, what is true for me. And this is the emotional alchemy is a process that I teach my clients, that I do with my clients, and I do with myself, whereby we use what's coming up emotionally to go into the body, and also not just feel it through, because emotions, they're meant to move. They're not meant to be suppressed in your body. So it's not just learning to allow it to move through you, which is a part of it, but it's getting to what's underneath that. Why are we feeling that way, right? Once we have felt it, then it's getting curious about, what am I believing that has me feeling this way? And often it's, it's a lie. We're believing something that isn't true. Or it could be what you're feeling in this moment actually isn't about what's going on right now, but it's the catalyst to release emotion from childhood, as an example. Yeah, to release emotion, right, that's been there a really long time. And it's taking you back to, that's when you took on the belief that isn't true. So to me, emotions they're like portals. They're doorways that we get to walk through. And on the other side of that, we get the clarity, and there's just more freedom, there's more truth, and there's more love available when we're willing to actually dive into them instead of trying to avoid them because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And people may or may not know, me and Glenda have very similar training, different but very similar training. So you're totally preaching to the choir here for me. But yeah, absolutely. Like it's working on the unconscious mind level to these events that happened in our past, or even even intergenerational. Previously, yeah. I'm working with a person right now who, depending on what emotion we're talking about, we've gone back 8 generations of trauma that needs healing. So
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
generations and even lifetimes, right? So
yeah.
past lives as well. And so, yeah, I definitely use a process that goes back that far. And what's interesting is we don't actually have to know the exactly what happened at that event. Like that's what I love about this is not about reliving the past like that. I just want to make that really clear. It's not
Yeah,
about reliving
absolutely.
trauma,
Good point.
right?
Because I think a lot
Yeah,
of,
it's
if
not.
I can just interject for 1 second, don't mean
Yeah,
to cut you off. Too many, and I think all modalities have a place to play, and they're all beneficial. But there's some that where you're like, continuously reliving that one event, whatever it might be, is like, I don't think that serves anyone to have every session, every week, or every 2 weeks, you go to your therapist to relive that same event. I don't think that helps you at all, and
no,
which makes it a long process typically. But anyway, enough about that. I cut you off there. I wanted you to finish. Do have another couple questions I want to get to, but I do want you to finish your thought.
yeah, I don't remember what it was. It's okay. You go ahead and
Okay.
ask the next questions.
All good, all good. So obviously we're both in the health realm here. This is not necessarily
Mhm.
exclusively a health only podcast, but I do like to ask all my guests, what does your morning routine look like, or what's a non-negotiable as far as your health?
So the minute I wake up, I do a form of a meditation that uses energy tools to clear, to center, to ground and connect. That's just I call it energetic hygiene and taking care of my energetic body and energetic space before my feet even hit the ground. So that's the first thing that I do. Um, I have some jaw stretches that I do because I wear a mouth guard. So I do those after. And then these are non-negotiable for me. I'm either doing resistance strength training or yoga. So I tend to alternate them. And then I have my big glass of water. Um, I'll have my water can actually be interspersed in there while I'm working out. And then afterwards, I have a protein smoothie, and then I go for my walk. So I get outside in the fresh air. So
Awesome.
that's my yeah, that's my almost every day. And sometimes the walk might get delayed to later in the day, but it happens every day. It's just a matter of what's going on and
Right.
if I have an appointment or something like that. So, but yeah, body movement for me is non-negotiable. Absolutely 100%. It has to happen. It's a way of moving energy. It's not just a way of taking care of the physical body, which it is. But obviously just even mentally, my mental state is so much better, and also it moves energy. So if you're someone that wakes up little like if you're a bit agitated, or if you're not feeling relaxed when you get up in the morning, just move your body will really help move that energy out. So and then my meditation happens whenever. I usually meditate before I sit down to do any work, just to connect, because
Right.
I'm creating a lot of the time, so just open up that channel for it to come through. Or if I've got client calls, same thing. I'll do that before.
Okay, I love it. I think you're the first guest in 50 some odd guests who's talked about jaw exercises. And my wife also wears a mouth guard at night, and she's never complained about that. But I'm going to talk to her about that. And maybe offline we can talk about what that looks like. So,
Yeah,
as
sure.
well. You also you have a gift for the listeners, a free resource. Can you describe what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've created this true self journal. So it's really like, how do you rediscover the power of living as your true self and aligning with your heart and soul? And so what this guide offers are just very simple, like powerful prompts that are designed to reconnect you with who you truly are and help you release what no longer serves and embrace your authentic path forward. So it's not, in just a few minutes a day, you're creating space for more clarity and intention and alignment, so that you can really live a life led by your heart. So it's something that I've just created recently. Actually, I'm really excited about it because I want people to be able to dip their toe in. Sometimes the work that I do with my clients can seem a little scary to some people because it's like, what is this about? So just to get
Sure.
a taste of like, okay, this is a good starting point. And if it's something that, really, really resonates with you and you're really, lit up about it, then there's more from there. But that's something I created that you can print it out, that you can just take some time, and it's got some different prompts and reflections, and even some I am statements, right, that you can come up with just to start your day off,
Awesome.
on the right foot. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
I
I'm
love it. Well, I always download everything that I get that the guests provide as well. So I'll be
awesome.
doing that. And for everyone, we'll have the link to that free gift, all of Glenda's other links for her website and whatever else she's got going on, so you can connect with her on the social and all those sorts of things. So, Glenda, as we come to a close here, one last question. What is something that you wish you started earlier, or maybe another way to put it is like, what would you love to go back and tell your younger self?
Mm. I would tell my younger self to have more fun and not be so freaking serious. That's
Good
what I would
advice.
tell
I could give myself that same advice. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Again, just being so driven and just so like, like up in my head. Yeah, just um I just realize now, just because I've been on this journey for the last 21 years, so I guess my awakening journey, so to speak. And I've just come to realize like what a wackadoo I actually am. Like I am a huge handball, like ham bone, I guess is the word, goofball. And it's just so much more fun. Like my kids look at me like, I've got two teenage girls, so you can imagine, they just look at me like, what are you doing? But I'm
I'm
such a
getting that from my oldest one too, for sure.
Right? Yeah. And I'm just like, look, I'm entertaining myself. I'm good. Like I'm good just doing, right? So I think there's yeah, this life is meant to be enjoyed and not just like to survive and get through and achieve and blah blah blah, all the things. It's just like, yeah, just have some more fun and just don't be so serious. It's all good.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, certainly know with one teenager and another one not far behind, I totally understand
Yeah.
what you're saying there. So, Glenda, I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today. And again, everyone, um, remember underneath there's going to be all the links to connect with Linda. Also, don't forget to check out the show sponsor today and their links. And also, I have some new resources as well. So also check out my links there as well. So I'm going to throw it back to J23, who's going to guide us out with some music. Glenda, one last time, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you coming here today. And thanks for listening to the Deepak Saini Show. Remember, exceptional results for the exceptional you. Till next time. Thanks, everyone. This episode is brought to you by Optimizers. I love their product, Gluten Guardian. Now, I'm not celiac, but I am sensitive to gluten, and sometimes you just can't avoid it. You're out. Sometimes you just want to celebrate that, birthday cake that your kids made, what have you. So I'll pop a couple of these pills just to help mitigate the inflammation and help break down the gluten that I may ingest sometimes. So Gluten Guardian also works with dairy as well. I take these occasionally, and click the link and you can save 10% off at least, if not more. Cheers.
Podcast produced by the Minted Green Company